The PGA Tour just wrapped one of its most financially successful seasons in recent memory. Record prize money, sold out galleries, broadcast deals that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. On paper, professional golf in 2026 has never looked stronger, but here is what the numbers do not show. The man at the center of all of it, the player the tour uses to sell sponsorships, fill grandstands, and justify every dollar of those bloated purses, is not happy. And he has been telling anyone willing to listen exactly why. Scottie Scheffler has been the world's #1 ranked golfer for 192 cumulative weeks. He has won 20 PGA Tour events since February 2022, including 4 major championships. He is, by any honest measure, the most dominant golfer of his generation, and right now he has 3 specific documented grievances with the organization that depends on him more than any other single person. These are not vague complaints, they are not contract disputes, they are not rumors. Scheffler has gone on record, specifically and calmly, about a broken schedule, a rulebook being applied without logic, and a structural reform that could permanently block him from one of the most meaningful tournaments of his life. Each problem on its own is serious. Together they tell a story the Tour cannot afford to ignore. In spring 2026, the PGA Tour scheduled 5 signature events across 6 consecutive weeks. More specifically, 3 of those signature events, the RBC Heritage, the Cadillac Championship, and the Truist Championship, were crammed into the window between the Masters and the PGA Championship. Golf journalist Sean Zach from golf.com put it plainly in a post that went viral almost immediately. One problem the PGA Tour needs to solve: 3 signature events between Masters and PGA Champ. 0 featuring both Rory McIlroy and Scottie Scheffler. Hilton Head, Rory out, Scottie in. Doral, Rory out, Scottie in. Quail Hollow, Rory in, Scottie out. Read that again. 3 consecutive signature events. 2 of the biggest names in the sport, not once in the same field. The product the Tour charges sponsors and broadcasters top dollar for was not showing up as advertised, not once, across 3 events. Scheffler's reason for skipping the Truist Championship at Quail Hollow, a $20 million signature event, was straightforward. He has said publicly that he operates on a cadence, and that cadence means he does not play the week before a major. He prefers to take that time to rest, practice at home, and arrive at a major prepared rather than fatigued. In his own words, explaining the decision to skip Truist, "Yeah, my schedule for me always operates on kind of a cadence. Like, I typically don't love playing the week before a major. The Tour right now is in a great position. It's nice to have so many tournaments that are really good. If I had it my way, I would play every single week out here." That last line is important. Scheffler is not trying to play fewer events. He has said explicitly he would play every week if the structure allowed it. The schedule made that impossible. After 3 or 4 consecutive weeks of competition, he has been open about feeling spent. That is not a personal weakness. That is the world's best athlete telling the organization that the structure is damaging his ability to perform at the level that everyone, fans, sponsors, broadcasters, expects. When a star player flags a problem this clearly, most organizations course correct. The PGA Tour's response was to expand the calendar that created the problem in the first place. Trump National Doral became the 9th signature event on the schedule, not a reduction, not a restructure, an addition. And that addition generated its own embarrassment. Photos and videos of sparse grandstands and near-empty galleries at the Blue Monster course circulated on social media throughout the week of the Cadillac Championship, raising immediate questions about whether adding more events was solving anything at all. The fan reaction online was consistent and cutting. One comment read, "Awful scheduling when Doral became a signature event. Also need to move the PGA Championship back to August." Another said, "No real sympathy for PGA Tour on this one. How you can even think 3 signature events between majors was a sensible idea, I don't know." The signature event model was designed with one central promise: bring the game's elite together more frequently. What the spring 2026 schedule delivered was the exact opposite, forcing strategic absences at precisely the moment when golf's 2 biggest names should have been sharing a tee sheet. If the schedule was the first crack in the wall, what happened at the 2025 PGA Championship was a direct hit. And it went right to the heart of what Scheffler stands for as a competitor. Quail Hollow Club in Charlotte received over 3.5 inches of rain in the days leading up to the second men's major of the year. The fairways were visibly wet, there was standing water in multiple locations. Players during practice rounds could see exactly what was coming: soft, muddy conditions that make it nearly impossible to predict where a ball will travel after landing. The preferred lies rule, which allows players to lift, clean, and place their ball in the fairway under those exact conditions, was available. The PGA of America announced the night before the first round that it would not be applied. What happened next became the defining story of Thursday's opening round. Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele both found the middle of the fairway at the par 4 16th hole. Both had mud on their golf balls. One after the other, their approaches hooked hard into the water. Both made double bogeys. Scheffler addressed it directly in his post-round press conference. He said, "It's one of those deals where it's frustrating to hit the ball in the middle of the fairway and get mud on it and have no idea where it's going to go. I understand it's part of the game, but there's nothing more frustrating for a player. You spend your whole life trying to learn how to control a golf ball, and due to a rules decision, all of a sudden you have absolutely no control over where that golf ball goes. Then, when pressed further, he gave what became one of the most precise and thoughtful critiques of golf's rules culture in recent memory. He said, "By the way, this is going to be the last answer that I give on playing it up or down. I don't personally think that hitting the ball in the middle of the fairway you should get punished for. In golf, there's enough luck throughout a 72-hole tournament that I don't think the story should be whether or not the ball is played up or down. When I look at golf tournaments, I want the purest, fairest test of golf, and in my opinion, maybe the ball today should have been played up." Scheffler described it equally bluntly. "It is what it is, and a lot of guys are dealing with it, but it's just unfortunate to be hitting good shots and to pay them off that way. It's kind of stupid," he added. "You're kind of 50-50 once you hit the fairway. A lottery, a crapshoot." Two of the best players in the world describing a major championship in those terms. Here's where the story becomes genuinely difficult to defend from the tour's side. In 2026, the PGA Tour applied preferred lies at multiple regular season events: the Valero Texas Open, the Zurich Classic, the Cadillac Championship, and the CJ Cup Byron Nelson. Every time it was announced, fan reaction was negative. Viewers felt it softened the competition and removed the difficulty that makes professional golf worth watching at the highest level. So the preferred lies rule was denied at a major championship where 3.5 inches of rain had soaked the fairways and where mud balls were directly deciding outcomes on the course's most difficult stretch. Then the same rule was applied repeatedly at regular events where the conditions did not demand it and where the fans actively did not want it. There is no consistent standard visible in those decisions, no clear philosophy, just reactive, event-by-event choices, and Scheffler caught on the wrong side of the inconsistency both times. The first two problems are fixable. They require the right people to make different decisions. Problem 3 operates on a fundamentally different level, and understanding why means understanding something about Scottie Scheffler that the Tour's business model was never built to account for. PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolapp has been developing a comprehensive restructure of the Tour's schedule, targeting implementation in 2028. The framework involves a two-tier system. Track 1 would feature approximately 16 elevated regular season events alongside the 4 majors and 3 playoff tournaments, totaling roughly 23 events, with purses of at least $20 million and 120 player fields. Track 2 would consist of approximately 20 additional tournaments with purses between $8 and $10 million and 140 player fields, with promotion and relegation operating between the two tiers. The Tour is also targeting expansion into new markets, including Boston, Philadelphia, Denver, Nashville, San Francisco, and Seattle. The model is inspired by the English Premier League structure. Rolapp said at the Players' Championship in March, "You see this work powerfully elsewhere, including in English football, where clubs move between the Premier League and the Championship based on their performance. Applying elements of that approach to the PGA Tour creates real consequence, lifting the competitive standard across the entire platform." Commercially, the logic is straightforward. If sponsors are paying $20 million to title a tournament, they need to know the best players will be there. You cannot guarantee that if your top players have the option of playing a lesser event in the same week, which is why, according to Golfweek's Eamon Lynch, the Future Competitions Committee is considering a rule that would mean players eligible for Track 1 events will be strongly discouraged, if not outright prevented from entering Track 2 events. For most players, that is an inconvenience. For Scottie Scheffler, it is something else entirely. Scheffler grew up in Dallas, Texas. As a 17-year-old high school student, he received a sponsor's exemption to make his PGA Tour debut at the CJ Cup Byron Nelson at TPC Craig Ranch. His sister caddied for him that week. His family was in the gallery. And sitting in those stands watching was the girl he had been dating since their senior year at Highland Park High School. That girl is now his wife, Meredith Scheffler. After winning the event last year with a record low score, Scheffler said, "When I think about this tournament, I think about a lot of different stuff. I grew up coming to watch it. This was my first start on the PGA Tour when I was in high school. The girl I was dating at the time is now my wife. We have one son. My sister was caddying for me at the time. She was here today. She has 2 kids. My family was all able to be here, and it was just really, really special memories." Under the proposed 2028 structure, the CJ Cup Byron Nelson would almost certainly be classified as a Track 2 event. The plan could make that tournament permanently off limits to Scheffler, the player who debuted there as a teenager, whose wife was in the stands, who won it with a record score, and who shows up there every single year not because of the prize money, but because of what the place means to him. Rex Hoggard, speaking on the Golf Channel podcast, noted that Scheffler playing the Byron Nelson just shows how difficult it will be for Brian Rolapp to get total buy-in from all of the players. He added, "This is a really good example of how each player has their own 5th major. Every player, depending on where you're from, where you grew up, what golf courses you like, has an event that's sort of outside the box that they love to play in. What makes this situation even more revealing is that the Tour's own executives apparently did not see the player pushback coming. Hoggard described a conversation where a senior PGA Tour executive was reportedly just flummoxed when a player explained why they wanted to play a Track 2 event. The executive's question: explain to me again why you would rather go play an event with an $8 million purse as opposed to an event with a $20 million purse. The fact that that question was asked in genuine confusion tells you everything about the gap between the organization's commercial logic and its players' actual motivations. Jordan Spieth faces the same issue at the Byron Nelson. Canadian players on tour will want to play the Canadian Open regardless of its tier classification. Matt Fitzpatrick has spoken about wanting to return to British events. Former Ryder Cup player Stephen Alacher, speaking on the Sky Sports Golf podcast, gave the clearest summary of why the plan faces real resistance. I don't think that could work, to be honest, no. It stops Rory McIlroy playing in the Irish Open. It stops Scottie Scheffler playing on his own turf. It stops Fitzpatrick coming back for the British Masters or something like that. There is also a commercial paradox sitting at the center of this plan that has not been fully resolved. If the tour's biggest names are prohibited from playing Track 2 events, those events lose their star power and therefore their ability to attract meaningful sponsorship. One senior executive told Golfweek, going backwards on purses isn't an option, but it is difficult to see how $8-10 million purses remain sustainable without name brand players in the field. The plan designed to protect the top could end up quietly destroying the middle. Scottie Scheffler has not called a press conference to issue demands. He has not had his agent plant stories. He has not threatened to reduce his schedule or explore alternatives. What he has done is something more deliberate and, frankly, more telling. He has been consistently, calmly, and specifically honest about what is not working. On the schedule, he described his own fatigue in clear terms and explained exactly how the tour structure conflicts with his preparation. On the rulebook, he gave a methodical, philosophical explanation of why the preferred lies decision at Quail Hollow was wrong, and then closed the subject. On the Byron Nelson, he shows up every year. That presence is its own statement. This is a warning delivered at a controlled volume by someone who does not need to raise his voice to be heard. The PGA Tour's greatest argument for why its product is worth watching is quietly and specifically telling them what is broken. Rolapp is expected to make his most significant announcement yet about the 2028 structure, following a board meeting at the Travelers Championship in late June. What that announcement contains will say everything. Because the players most affected, Scheffler, Spieth, McIlroy, and dozens of others with deep personal ties to specific events, are watching. And the gap between what the tour's spreadsheets say makes sense and what its most important players actually care about is wider than Ponte Vedra appears to realize.